Tomorrow evening, I'm heading back up to Svalbard. It's an incredible destination, truly unique in what it offers photographically. Now, I've got 10 guests joining me, and yes, we're going to be looking for polar bears, walrus, reindeer, Arctic fox, even things like blue whales and puffins. But more than that, and this is something that I'm going to tell everybody when we get on the boat, is you can step outside onto the deck of the Stockholm, and you can point your camera in a direction and create amazing landscape images. It's different. You're looking for a different type of composition than just wildlife. But more than that, and that's what I'm going to talk about with you guys now, is the processing thereof is slightly different. Because in a wildlife image, you have a singular subject, everything's focused there, and then you go out. In a landscape image like we're going to talk about now, the idea is, how do I lead my viewer through this? Because the subject is now the entire frame. My name is Gerry, I'm from Wild Eye, and this is Behind the Frame. Okay, so let's get into this. On the ship, what we normally do is we have activities morning and evening. We go outside on a Zodiac, we photograph wildlife and landscapes, but in between, you as the client, you as the person on this boat can create endless amounts of landscape images. Now, because of the history of Wild Eye, we've always been heavy on the wildlife side of it. We are going to transition, more on that later, but the landscape side is a very, very exciting thing to me as a photographer. Because once you start playing with landscape photography, both compositionally and processing-wise, I truly believe there's a skills transfer from that kind of thinking over towards your wildlife photography. So in this video, what I've done is I've chosen just literally a random landscape from my Arctic trip last year. It was on the boat. We were just about to go into the pack ice, which is the ice from the North Pole kind of touching the northern coast of Svalbard. And we had the mountains in the background, something you always have in Svalbard. And then as we went into the ice, it started cracking up. And it makes for beautiful patterns and things. So, before we go in, what I'm going to do, I'm not going to stay exclusively in Lightroom for this one. I'm literally going to just straighten and crop in Lightroom. We're going to jump across to Photoshop, and most of my work I'm going to do there. However, I'm just using Photoshop as kind of a meeting point for Adobe Camera Raw, which is basically like Lightroom, for Nick, and I'll use some Topaz as well, just to give you an idea of what's possible and hopefully add some value to your own photography. Now, before we go into this, looking at the image, I am going to approach it like I want to create a dramatic, moody landscape image. I think it's valuable for when you approach your photography, wildlife, portraiture, landscape, to have an idea where you're going. If you know where you're going, it's easier to choose the route, yeah? So moody, yeah? Kind of dark and dramatic, and Arctic. So for moody, it speaks to contrast. It speaks to darker tones. Yeah. For dramatic, again, the images that you create will be dramatic enough, but you want to kind of, in certain instances, push certain of the elements a little bit further. And then Arctic, what's the first color you think when you think Arctic? To me, I go white first, then black, and then like a light blue, like a glacier blue. Now, the image I'm going to show you here, this is the image we've chosen. It's literally from the boat. I just snapped it. So there's no real color jumping at us in this one, right? It's a little bit of blue coming from the glacier here, but I'm going to try and inject a few colors, well, blue tones, in order to get that dark, moody Arctic feel. Right, let's get into Lightroom. So, as we get in here, I have got nothing. Let me just reset to make sure. This is the original raw file as shot. Right. The first thing, and my recipe has changed over time. Go and listen to the podcast. I've done a couple of episodes on that. But the first thing here that I would always do is I would crop, I would straighten the horizon, which in this instance is necessary, and I would remove dust spots. So let's do that in Lightroom. Crop, first of all. Let's see, what am I going to do? Let's say I'm going to go 2x3, kind of standard, right? 2x3. Now my decision here is, from a compositional point of view, I approach it as in, is my frame safe? Right? Is my corners safe? Is the image balanced? And where's the visual mass and energy going? Those are 5 points I'm working on. So for me, the frame here is safe, but the bottom part here I have decisions to make. So if I lift this up, I've got this triangle of ice popping in here, and this ends in. Would I be better served? I'm also compromising the top corner here. It's a bit close. So I might do something like this. Let's see what that looks like. Right. That makes me happier at the bottom, because in the other instance, if I did this piece of white is a very big visual element. It pulls my eye away from the center. Right. So cropping wise, I'm going to do lose that big piece, and I'm going to straighten the horizon. Now, on a Mac, you hold Command. On a PC, you hold Control. While you're in crop mode, watch my cursor, changes to a water measure, and then I can do that. I draw a line on the horizon, release, and it straightens it for me. Right, so I'm going to hit Enter. There's my crop. So what is the biggest point of visual energy? It's this water here, right? From there, it kind of goes up, and I lead down this diagonal kind of range of mountains. Okay, for now, I'm going to leave it exactly like this. I'm going to bounce this edited version, which is just a crop, over into Photoshop. So I'm going to right-click, Edit in, Photoshop. So now it's taking that crop, and if I jump into Photoshop, here's my image. Right. So the reason I'm going to do it this way is, yes, we can do the normal, and that's fine. I just want to give you some value. I want to add some different perspectives to this whole thing for you. So just before we go and back to me here, I'm going to use Nik filters. They have inside their color effects, they've got something called Pro Contrast. It is magnificent. And what it basically does in Lightroom terms, the black slider, white slider, highlights, and shadows, it kind of combines that. So it's going to bring a lot of detail into this image for me. So let's start there. Right. Photoshop, there's my background. It's locked. I'm going to go up, Filter, Nik Collection. Now, just for the record, 6 is the current one I'm using. 7 is the brand new one. I'm on a trial version, fully functional, but I'll probably upgrade because so far I like what I see. I'm going to select Color Effects. Right. This gets opened up. I'm going to say Continue my trial. And on the side here, I've got all of their templates and their suggestions, but I've got my favorites. And if you've watched previous videos, you'll know that these are my favorite ones. Pro Contrast. Right. I'm going to click on that. Here's my before and after slider. I'm going to leave it so I only see the after. And I'm going to go straight to dynamic contrast. Now watch. One slider equals the result of me going into Lightroom and doing 4 sliders. Highlight, shadows, blacks, and whites. Watch this. Let's punch it up. Okay. I'm liking that. I'd really, and I've said this in the past, I really don't care for these numbers in any of the programs. I just go visually. So just with the one slider, I've gone before and after. All right, pretty impressive. I like that. Then I'm just going to say apply. Now, as in previous videos that I've done, what Nik Filters does, it creates a second layer. You go and look on the Wild Eye YouTube channel, you'll find it. And all my adjustments then is made on that layer. Right, next thing I want to do is I want to look at the sky. Now, the easiest way for me to do that would be in Lightroom. However, once you're in Photoshop, I'm going to duplicate this layer by going Command J. So that's a brand new layer. And I'm going to go Filter, Camera Raw Filter. Now, this is exactly Lightroom. Your keyboard shortcuts are the same. The way you manage is the same. And it even looks almost the same. Right, so there is exactly all of that. The reason I came here is because of the masking feature. There we go. And I'm going to select Sky. Now, I would normally do this in Lightroom, but again, like I said, I want to just give you some different perspectives on this whole thing. The sky is selected. Now, which one do we go to? Yes, quite correct, dehaze. So what dehaze does, remember, texture, clarity, and dehaze, they're all forms of contrast. Texture brings contrast around the highlight edges, clarity around the darker edges, and dehaze trying to inject contrast into smooth areas, right? That would be, for example, sky. So let me just turn off the overlay for a second. If we look up here, you can see there's a little bit of cloud coming through, right? It's a little bit of kind of depth happening. There's some birds in here as well, but we'll look at that now. So what I'm going to do, turn my visualization on again, so you see that's the area I'm working. I go straight to dehaze, and I go up. Now, I'm not going to do this, obviously fake, but I want to leave it to a place where I'm getting some nice depth at the top. Now, if we zoom into that, I turn the overlay off. Yes, there is some noise. We'll clean this up now. I should have done that in the beginning. But I can denoise after the fact. What I'm doing is by increasing this dehaze, I'm creating a bit of a frame at the top so that my viewer, the gaze doesn't go off the top of the frame. So I'm kind of holding them in. Yeah? Okay, liking that. And let's go, okay. There we go. So that would be if I turn these layers off. There's my original. This is with Pro Contrast from Nik. And this is with my sky brought in. Okay, so far I'm liking this. So now what I want to do is I'm going to combine these layers just so I don't work with too many. Again, I'm lazy with this stuff. I want to make it as simple as possible. It's a good tip. Keep it as simple as possible. So I'm going to select all of those, and I'm going to right-click and say Flatten Image. Done. So now all of that is set into my base image. What I want to do now, I'm going to say, okay, cool. This dark water here is a very big visual element. but there's a big, strong leading line happening down here from these mountains. So I want to try and push those up a little bit. A couple of ways I can do this. Let me show you the first one. I'm going to create a new layer. I'm then going to go and I'm going to say over here, where is it? Dodging and burning. So burning would be making an area darker. I use a square bracket to make my brush a bit bigger. I'm going to attack the midtones at the top here, and let's do exposure 50, so it's not too aggressive. Now, watch, I'm just going to do this as an element first. If I do this, so it makes my midtones darker. Undo. I'm deciding I'm rather going to use the shadows, because if I go over the blacks, see how that pops then? Right. I'm also deciding to make this less. Right, so let's zoom in a bit here. So I'm just going to take this burn over the shadow areas of these mountains. So let's do that a little bit there. All right, this one gets some attention. Up here, let's come across a little bit there. So I'm focusing on the mountains because, and this is like flow and density inside of my brush in Lightroom. If I turn this off now, so there, look at the mountains, right? Off and on, off and on. So it just gives it a little bit more pop. That's the one way you can do this. Another way, so I'm going to delete that brushing. This is the value. I'm trying to give you different options, yeah? I'm going to go into duplicate my layer again, Command J or Control J, and I'm going to go back into Camera Raw Filter, because now, again, I'm looking for my mask, but this time, because it's a kind of an oval shape, I'm going to go radial, and I'm going to do this. So I can rotate this guy a little bit, open it up a bit. So I'm going to do all of my mountains like that. Now I want to lose the sky pieces, and I want to lose a little bit of this. So with that selected, I'm going to go subtract the sky. Aha. So see, it narrows it down. So I've selected my big area with the radial minus the sky, and I can say also subtract with a brush. Where's my brush? There we go. And then I can just erase a little bit on the mountain. So I'm not going to go too specific. We'll get it kind of close-ish, but that would be pretty much the area I want to work. Yeah? So now, with that done, I'm going to again come to clarity and dehaze, because I want to inject contrast into the mountains, which clarity is the one speaks to me, because remember, clarity favors dark areas. So if I do this, see, watch how that mountain punches suddenly, all or nothing, right? I'm going to be quite aggressive on that. Nice. Now again, yes, I could have done this on the previous round when I did the sky, but I want to show you all these options. So I'm going to click OK. Let's see. So it's cementing that down. There's without and with. So my mountains gets a little bit of a pop. Right. Now overall, I'm liking what I'm seeing, but remember my brief in the beginning was dramatic, Arctic, landscape, moody. So what I'm going to do now, and this is a very cool one that you can use inside Nick, called Viveza. What Viveza has is you get structure, clarity, and all those kind of things inside of Lightroom. This structure setting inside of Nick Filters is phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. So watch what it does. I'm not going to do that. I'm overextending it so you can see. But this, to add a bit of drama in, look at this ice in the front. Phenomenal, right? But we're not going to go global, because I want the sky not to get blown out too much with the drama. I want to focus on this ice in the front. So I'm going to pick a local adjustment, control point, put it over there. So I'm going to visualize now. So I've selected this control point, which is that area. If I do this, the white area that you see is the area that will be affected by whatever I do. So if I do this, it selects the area. White is where the adjustment happens. So let's say I want that. And I hold Option and drag. So I create a second one and a third one. And let's put one over there. Right. So I've now got 4 control points. And I'm going to select all of them. Select one. Oh, come on. Select one. Select the bottom one. Right click. And group them. Where's my grouping thing here? Right click. Okay. With this technical error, what would happen is with them, all of them selected, right? With all of these things selected, I can now turn off the visualization, because I know where my adjustments are happening, and I can use the structure button and it'll only affect those areas. It is phenomenally effective. It's very similar to masking in Lightroom, but for certain areas like ice and sky, this works really well. Right, so I'm going to do that. I want to now maybe lift this up to here as well. So I'm going to take this one, hold Option, pull it up, put it into this area there. And if I then look at all of my control points together one more time, 2, 3, 4, and 5, there's my adjustment that I've done to make that ice just a little bit more dramatic in the foreground. The nice thing is the smooth areas remain smooth. Okay, so I kind of like that. I'm going to apply that. All right, so far so good. Let's see. Looking nice. See that texture that came in before and after. It's looking quite nice. Right, now I'm looking at this whole episode and I'm thinking, okay, another thing, if you've been up to the Arctic, it's a very moody thing, like misty almost. So what I do, and I love this for wildlife and for landscape, let me flatten those just for now. I'm going to go back into color effects over here. And I am going to go, close that, install later. I'm on the previous version now. Glamour Glow. What Glamour Glow does is it kind of softens up all the edges. It's more of a fashion kind of photography tool. So it does that, right? It makes it very dreamy, but you do lose some structure. So here's the thing. I'm going to do that. I like overall. I'm going to bring saturation back. And now, with 0, here, I'm going to take a global drop of warmth. So that, but not too much. Just a little bit to bring in that little cold feeling into the sky and into the ice. Right. Maybe back that up a touch. And now what I'm thinking, okay, cool. There's areas here, like, for example, this ice and this one that I still want to keep the integrity of all the structure that I've created. I'm going to click on this minus, put the control point there, and now within this control point, it's not adding that Glamour Glow. So I'm going to take this one across to there and to there. So if we look at the before and after, it just, look what it does to this mountain area here. It just softens it up beautifully, right? Nice Glamour Glow happening, but it doesn't affect the sharpness in the front. So far, so good. Let's see where we're at. Okay, I need to be in Photoshop over there. Done. So if I now go, just let's check the history. From the very beginning, that's what we opened up, straight out of Lightroom with just a crop, and that's where we are now. Okay, I'm liking this. So what I'll do very quickly is let's go and spot remove here. There were some birds, but obviously my sensor was a bit dirty as well. Inside Photoshop, you're going to use this tool over here. It's a spot healing brush. Make it small. And what you want to make sure of here is at the top, it says content aware, which means if I click on this, it balances everything out. So now it's just an exercise of clicking through all of this. There could be some snow in here as well. All right? Snow, I know there were some birds around, but we can click through all of these, the big ones. I'm not going to go too much and waste too much time on that, but this is normally something that I would have started with. Bad, Gerry. Right, let's see where we're at. Most of those, so you literally just click, single click, and it is phenomenally clean in how it does it. Let's pull back. All right. So at this stage now, I'm kind of where I want to be because that is what I saw when I was there. It's also a very realistic representation. To finish it up now, I'm going to use a tool that I spoke about in the podcast. So normally what I would do is I would double up my bottom layer. I'm now going to finesse sharpening and noise reduction, yeah? And I would normally go into Topaz Labs Photo AI. It does everything automatically. But for the purposes of this, I just want to show you another variation. Inside here, define. So Nick Collection has define, which is a noise reduction plugin. So let's see what this does. I'm going to say continue my trial. Before and after. Obviously, you can't see it at that level, but let's zoom in to the top here. So before and after. So let's look at this area at the top here. I can decide how much noise reduction to do over here. How much do I want it to noise reduce? The cool thing, what happens here, is if you look at the entire frame, if I say measure noise over here manually, I can draw a little square on this, for example, like that. And then Nick will take the area inside of that, calculate the noise, and apply it to the entire image. So let's see what that would do. And I can say measure. Let's go in. Where is it? So if I go in even more, so before and after. So you can see this noise going away, but it still maintains integrity in the sharp areas. I can make this smaller and say measure. So it's taking a smaller sample. I can move it to that and say measure. So the cool thing here is you can noise reduce in certain color tones, which is pretty cool. All right, I'm going to just zoom back. I'm going to do this on manual now, but that's a very cool trick to have. I'm going to do it automatic, measure. So it's only picking up a little bit down here, and I'm going to say apply. And once it's done the noise reduction, remember, Photo AI will do all this automatically. Doesn't really matter which way you go. It's going to be the same in the end. Filter, and I would say sharpen output. This is exactly what it says. It sharpens for output. So on the side here, display, adaptive sharpening, and amount. So if I zoom in, let's just come to an area here. For example, there's some smooth and hard. If I increase that, I want you to look at this area in the ice, for example, before and after. Very, very, very good sharpening as well. So I'm going to just leave that on the basic and done. So just come back to me here quickly. So what I've done the last while is I've used Photo AI extensively because it's a single click. It calculates and it does its thing. I did a podcast about the value add of Photo AI versus something like Nick. I've been using Nick for the last week, and I really, really like what I'm getting. Okay, so one more time before we finish this up. If I go and look at the first, this is how the image came in from Lightroom, and that's where we are now. Pretty decent. For me now, because I'm working from Lightroom into here, if I just go File, Close, or File, Save As, right? I close. It'll save this version back into Lightroom. But I want to export this for you. So I'm going to go File, Export As. It gives me my export dialog. And here I can decide what file format. I'm going to keep it as a JPEG, give me the highest version. If I have specific requirements for the output, that's where I would say it. And then I would go Export. Let's go on the desktop, Svalbard Landscape, and export. Done. So I can still now go Close, Save, which means if I jump back into Lightroom here, that one would eventually come through. So I'm in my my masked, what's it called? I can say this. I know I can. There's the original, and there's the new one, right? So it brings it back into Lightroom. Alternatively, if I go into my desktop, I saved it over here, and there we go. Right. So that's just one way. Obviously, I took a lot of side turns and different routes there because I want to show you as much as possible of what is possible. I think we get romantic in the way we do things, photography-wise and processing-wise. And I think it's good to have a different opinion and a different way of doing things and different tools. It brings the fun element back. You're still ending up with a really good image, but I think it keeps your photographic voice awake and excited. So if you have any questions on any of those, Nick, Topaz, Photoshop, Lightroom, please get in touch. I hope you found some value in there, and I will chat to you in my next episode of Behind the Frame. Thank you for watching, guys. Good luck, happy editing, and don't forget to be awesome. My name is Gerry. I'm from Wild Eye. Bye for now.